Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today again with another video for you on this channel, talking about another gate in human design, another gene key, and another zodiac degrees. Today we're going to be talking about the zodiac degrees of Sagittarius from 11.22 degrees to 17 degrees of Sagittarius in astrology, and that is in correspondence with, if you're approaching this from a human design body graph, human design gate number 5. If you're approaching this from the gene keys profile, it is gene keys number 5. They overlap, and so if you have any of these, you can watch this particular video. So if you have this particular archetype in your chart, you're moving from a place of impatience to patience, which is in the gene keys. They call it the library of light. And then ultimately, at the highest destiny for you, it is timelessness. This is when you hit the speed of being. Sounds really exciting, isn't it, Sagittarius? The dream arc vision key bird totem of yours is the geese. At the fear level, it is the plankton. At the life key, it is the elephant. In the 64 hexagram of the I-Ching, this particular hexagram is called waiting. It is water over heaven. In the 64 genetic codons, this particular genetic codon is called Threonine. It has to do with treatments of the nervous system disorders. It is part of the ring of light, which means that this archetype can consciously or unconsciously raise or lower the frequency of light that touches your particular DNA, which means you have the ability to actually alter reality. The programming partner of this archetype is gate 35 in human design, gene key number 35, and that is in correspondence with the sign of Gemini from 11.22 degrees to 17 degrees. And the programming partner is basically the opposite part in the zodiac wheel, and it shows kind of a complementary opposite point, which can kind of balance this particular archetype. In human design, this gate is located in the sacral. It belongs to the channel of rhythm, 515 in the stream of service. So some interesting facts about the geese and its particular symbolism. Well, the thing about geese is that you can almost find them living anywhere. They're generally very adaptable to different types of environments. And the most noticeable thing that people will recognize about the geese is their V formation when flying. There is a logic behind why geese fly in a V flying formation, and they're not the only birds to do this. There's plenty of birds that also do this, but when we look at the sky and then we see this V flying formation, we generally think that it's the geese because it's symbolic for this. So they basically do this in order to conserve energy when flying, because what happens is that the bird that is behind in the V formation is generally a little bit higher than the bird in front. When the wind actually hits the bird that's in the front, it actually pushes the bird behind upwards in upwards motion. So the bird that is at the end of the V flying formation, that bird generally has to use less energy to fly because it's being pushed upwards by the wind that's passing from the birds in front of it. Now, when the bird in the front kind of gets tired, what it tends to do is that it will move to the back of the formation, and the bird that is next in line will now be in the front. So this keeps happening in a very rhythmic natural cycle, the switching back and forth of the birds. This represents cooperation, supportiveness, patience, and kind of working together with regards to the personality of the geese. And another very interesting thing about them is that they don't fly alone generally, especially during migration, is that they generally don't fly alone. And what happens is that if there's an injured bird in the flock, that bird will probably rest on the ground, and the other birds, whether that be their partner, their spouse, or whether it's just like their acquaintances in their group, they will wait for that bird to get better. And if the bird doesn't get better, the bird eventually dies, then so be it. But they don't know what's going to happen with that injured bird, so they tend to be pretty loyal in a sense that they wait with that injured bird. So this can be symbolic of the fact that geese have a natural understanding of cycles, and they're kind of the cycles of pain and hurt, and somehow, you know, they're kind of in this enlightened state to have this understanding and to understand the patience that is required to wait through these periods of hardships. There's this symbol of not needing to rush to meet their obsessed desires. They understand that they can survive together and better as a flock, so therefore if one is injured, they could at least be loyal in a sense that they stick together. They're in flow of what's necessary. So if you have this particular archetype, you may be somebody who is, first of all, has a particular routine that you may follow, but it's not a routine in which you're forcing yourself into doing something. It's a natural routine because you listen to the rhythms of your body and what it wants at a particular time, and you adhere to that, and you give your body that respect to get what it needs according to its natural rhythms. You may also have this nature where you are seeking for more out of life, but of course that is the impatience, so it's kind of the lower vibration of this energy, which we'll talk about very soon. You of course will have the qualities of being cooperative, loyal, understanding teamwork, and being courageous when you need to be in life, like the courageous geese that is willing to stay behind if it needs to be with its partner, or if it's a very close family member when that particular geese is injured, staying till the end. So if you are sort of working with the higher vibration of this particular energy, you may actually be somebody who has a lot of patience, because we'll talk about this very soon, because you have a natural understanding of the cycles and rhythms of life. And so, but if you're in the impatient stage, kind of the shadow phase of this, you can come off to people as pushy, because you would like people to do certain things for you at a particular time to get ahead in your life. Or you can have a sense of pessimism about you because things are not going the way that you plan, and then you fall into the more pessimistic type of thinking, which of course is not very typical of Sagittarius to be pessimistic, because Sagittarius is the most optimistic sign of the zodiac. The vision of your highest self. This is about transcending your shadow into your light and your higher vibration. And what does it look like with this particular archetype? So this gene key, this part of your genetic code, your DNA, it actually has to do with the ability to cooperate with natural cycles. When we talk about natural cycles, we mean like the seasons that happens, natural seasonal migration of birds, for example. And with all living things, the ability to heal itself from cuts and wounds. This is all natural, and it's a cycle. But because you're so in tune with these cycles and rhythms, it means that you would also be in tune with other collective and more negative cycles as well, like fears. This is a collective cycle that happens, and the fear that you may have, that is a more of because of the understanding of natural cycles and rhythms, the fears that can arise with this archetype is the fear that life is meaningless, the fear there's nothing more to life, the time's going to pass by and eventually you're going to be gone one day and you wouldn't have done anything in your life. That's the fear we're talking about here, and this is the shadow vibration of this energy. The reason why humans have this particular fear that a lot of animals don't have, that life is meaningless and time is running out, is actually because of the complex neocortex part of the brain that is able to perceive time. Animals don't wear a watch. They're just in tune with when the sun comes up, when the sun sets, the seasons, right? How their body responds to that. But human beings have invented the clock. We've invented time. So the anxiety that comes up, the awareness that comes up of the past, the present, and the future. This is the lower vibration of this energy because time is actually not linear. The future is happening now. We create the future by creating the present day, and that bleeds into the future. So the future is actually in the now. But of course, if you're perceiving time as linear, this can lead to impatience. And when you're impatient, if you actually monitor the state of impatience, it's actually agitation. And when you get agitated, what tends to happen is that your breathing becomes faster. Therefore, the breathing pattern itself is no longer natural. This is not the natural state of being. Impatience is not natural. So in order to transcend the shadow phase of this particular archetype, this would require an understanding that where you are right now in your life, this is the perfect timing because the universe and you are synchronized together. Whatever's happening out there in the universe, we're causing it. Whatever's happening here on Earth, the universe is causing it, and it's like a string that binds the two, the macrocosm with the microcosm, and they operate together as one. So whatever's happening right now, there's no escaping it. It's the perfect timing. And this can be seen, for example, with regards to, let's say, the periods of the coronavirus, which has predicted to be happening because of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that is very rare in the sky. And during the phase of the coronavirus, we have to go into isolation. A lot of people during this time of isolation are being awakened to their spiritual purpose here on Earth. There's the questions that come up of what is really my purpose now when we are being struck by something as heavy and as existential as a pandemic like this. So you see the collective and individual changes that are happening are in sync with the cosmos. We're operating together. We live out the universal themes in our individual lives. Kind of like how everyone has a Saturn return. At the age of 30 years old, if you're familiar with astrology and the Saturn return, we all have it when we reach about 30 years old. Just like Saturn coming back to the sign that it was in the moment that you were born. Also, our body matures at 30 years old after a Saturn return. And then we have a second Saturn return, and so on. And everybody has this. Everybody has it. Everybody has their own individual growth. But you also have your own individual growth, just as the cosmos has its own cycles and growth. So at the higher vibration of this energy, it's about cultivating patience. But patience is not the same as waiting. You can wait impatiently, and that is not the higher vibration of this energy. Patience is at the core. It's this feeling of groundedness that when you feel like time is running out, at the core, at your center of your grounding, you know that time doesn't really exist, and so you have patience. When you're waiting for something, it's always going to feel like there's a certain pressure being put. Waiting always comes with pressure, but the awareness of the fact that you're feeling pressured in the process of waiting leads to breaking through the actual pressure itself and leading to patience. So therefore, ultimately, patience is really, at the end of the day, about trusting the universe. Trusting that what's happening right now is the right time. And so, like I said previously, that this particular gene, if you have this one, it's associated with an amino acid called Threonine. It's an amino acid that actually traps light that enters into your body and converts it into energy. So if you're operating from the fear level of this archetype, you're going to be blocking the light that can enter into your actual physical body and into your DNA. But if you have the patience and you trust in the flow of life, your energy is going to be operating in a way where it is open to receiving light, and it's magnetic in that sense. And this is the important part of this gate, because if we want to not bump this particular archetype up a notch into the highest possible level of timelessness and hitting the speed of being, we're talking about enlightenment here. This particular gene key has the ability to be enlightened. So enlightenment is coming from the word light, to have light. And when you are able to be in rhythmic flow with life, you can actually reach a phase of enlightenment. And I'm going to explain why. So what happens when you're reaching enlightenment? And enlightenment is not something that can only be done by the Buddha. Anybody can reach enlightenment. And enlightenment comes when the fears arise. When the fears arise and you are able to be aware of the fear, whenever that happens, whether that you're doing something outside, whether you're sitting at home and meditating, it does not matter. As when you know that the fear, the impatience, or any other fears that you have within you is arising, you're able to be aware of it and transcend that fear. What happens when you do that is that this transcendence erases a particular imprinting of fear in your DNA, but more fears is going to arise, because we don't just have one fear and we just get over it, right? We have to practice. So when the next fears arise and you're able to transcend this, you erase another imprinting. Another fear arises, you transcend it, you erase another imprinting, and this goes in cycles, and it gets faster and faster according to the rhythms. And you have to be in the flow, in the natural state of this awareness and of this rhythm when this fears inside of you keep striking until it gets faster and faster at a very high speed. This is going to happen more naturally, and each time you transcend the fear, you transcend even more, and you get to the awakening and the enlightenment of who you really are above all the fears. You awaken to the understanding that you are simply a set of patterns. You are rhythms and you are patterns. And that's all you are. And you stop fighting and you stop seeking. You just are. You're not patience and you're not impatience. And you know, you're not even the name that you've been given, because if you can be aware that you are impatient, if you can be aware that you have a name, you can't be that thing, because higher consciousness is then stepping out of yourself to see you for what you are. So you can't be that thing because there's another consciousness that it knows and can see what it is that you are. So what you are is you just are. In a way, it's kind of like common sense, you know, to feel impatient and then say to yourself, oh, I am impatient. Well, if I can see that I'm impatient, then I am not impatient. I am the consciousness of me seeing myself being impatient. Hope it's kind of making sense, guys. That's enlightenment. When you realize this, when you realize that you are not every label that you've been given, and you just are, you are timeless. And it's really funny because timeless means less of the time. So when you're in your natural rhythms and you have no clock, you don't need to follow the times, you don't need to look at your clock every 5 minutes, you know, there's less of that's the paradox of actually being timeless. You realize with this archetype, you realize with the awakening that you are nothing at the end of the day. And when you're nothing, you can be everything. You can be whatever you want to be today, and you're not identified with it, and you're aware from a higher state of consciousness that this is what you are today, but it's not what you are, it's what you choose to consciously be today. And the next day, you can change and be something else, and you're not identified by it, and you're conscious that you made this choice to be just as you are today. So when you are nothing, you are everything, and you are timeless. So that is going to be the end of this video, and if you have this particular archetype, I also highly recommend that you watch your programming partner video, which is gate 35, gene key number 35, corresponding to the zodiac sign of Gemini from 11.22 degrees to 17 degrees of Gemini. Yeah, if you like this video, do give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below if you haven't. If you already subscribed, then thank you very much for coming along. I do astrological birth chart readings, synastry, relationship readings. All my services and all the information for that is on my website. You can check that out. And if you haven't already, joined our online astrology hub, where we have very interesting discussions about astrology, human design, and gene keys every day, then I highly recommend that you come and join us. I'll provide a link to that in the description box below. So that's it, beautiful souls. I'll see you soon. Bye.